I'm Senator Rebecca White, and I am the Windsor County District State Senator, along with Senator Dick McCormick and Senator Allison Clarkson, and I'm the newest member of the delegation. And right now is town meeting break, which means that I'm back in Hartford, and that's the time between when the legislature is meeting, we have town meeting break, and then we go back for a few more weeks to finalize bills and the budget. So the town hall, for me, the history that I have with this building, I actually started on the select board before this building was complete. It's a historical building, and it was going through renovation when I first got on the select board. So we actually met over at Railroad Row for my first few meetings when I got elected to the select board when I was 20. So I served on the board for 4 years, and most of that was in room 1, which is across the hall. And then after serving on the select board, I ran for state representative for this district, and now I'm one of the state senators. So this building is very important to me. So I grew up in Wilder, and now I live very close to here. Actually, if I looked out, you know, there wasn't a building right there, there's a chance that I could see my house. So I live in White River Junction now. And I went to Hartford High School. I did all my years through the Hartford School District. And then I went to the University of Vermont for college. And before I graduated from college, I actually moved home because I was doing an independent an internship with the Vermont Commission on Women. So I'd actually been done with my schoolwork, and I couldn't afford to live in Burlington anymore. So I came home. And after being home for a little bit, I ran for the select board and kind of been in the local political scene ever since. So the question around what motivates me to be in public service, there's a lot of different ways people ask that question. You know, why did you get into politics? Why did you get into local government? And it comes down to, for me, just how I was raised. So when I was growing up, we were not financially secure. Even though both my parents worked full-time jobs. In fact, I would say over full-time hours. My dad is a plumber and electrician, and my mom ran a daycare or child care center, as we know now, and she's now a paraprofessional at the high school. So both full-time, fully employed adults living in Wilder, Vermont, who could not afford a lot of the things that you would expect a family to be able to afford, both working relatively middle-class jobs. So what I experienced growing up was the support of our social safety net. So that includes Dr. Dinosaur, so free health insurance or subsidized health insurance for children and women who are pregnant at the time. I also got free school lunches. I was a beneficiary of many programs, like I got to go to summer camp that was paid for through Listen. I got scholarships to go to Northern Stage. So I just got time and time again support from the community so that I had the same experience for the most part as my fellow classmates who might have had a different income situation. So my parents were very clear when I was growing up that that is a valuable thing and something that we should be proud of as a state. As well as something that means I need to give back because of. So when I went to UVM and was doing an internship with the Vermont Commission on Women, I started to learn some of the percentages of women who served in local government compared to men who serve in local government, and the numbers were very disappointing. So when I moved back, I thought, okay, I'm gonna be on the Planning Commission, or I'm gonna join the Energy Commission, and I'm gonna do something on the local level. I didn't know what, though. And I spoke to someone who was my longtime mentor, and he said, well, why are you doing that? You should just run for office. Like, worst case scenario, you lose, and then you at least have had the experience. So I decided to run for office, and I won, which was very unexpected. I won by 7 votes. There was a recount, one of the first recounts that we know of. And I believe at the time was one of the only recounts we've had as a town. And that really just motivated me, and I kind of got hooked on going to town meetings and public meetings and working with people. And the other issues that really motivate me are climate change and the climate crisis. I've worked for a solar company and then Efficiency Vermont, all with the goal of lowering our carbon emissions and reducing our energy burden. So that all factors into why I do public service. The other thing that I don't talk enough about is that I am a younger Vermonter, and one of the conversations that happens all the time in our state is, where are the young people? Where have they gone? Why are they leaving? And while historically, if you look back, we've actually always had that problem. We've always had the bemoaning of where are the young people. It's not unique to like the 21st century. I think that the way we resolve some of that and actually attain or retain younger Vermonters is through having younger Vermonters serve and be at the table making decisions. When I first got into the legislature, I was 23, and I was in a class of actually somewhat younger folks. There were some folks in their 20s, including Representative Lucy Rogers and Representative Felicia Loeffler, who are some of my best friends. And one's a Republican, one's a Democrat, and we served together as a little triad for a while. And there was a few other 20-somethings. So that was a really formative experience for me because I got to work with people who are my age across party lines and also work with the vast majority of people who were over the age of 50 or even over the age of 60. Because the demographics in Vermont for our legislature, it's largely folks who are retired or independently wealthy. There's a very small slice of people who are working class or who are actively working right now. I would say the biggest challenge for me is financial. I make about $13,000 a year for just about 5 months of plus full-time work. I probably do 60 plus hours a week when we're in legislative session. And then outside of legislative session, you're campaigning or you're doing constituent service work, which is a lot of what I do, is actually not passing laws, but connecting constituents to services or connecting them to nonprofits or local resources. I'm kind of this funnel for people. And that role takes a lot of work because you have to both know the players to connect people to and have the time to respond. So it's not just a 5-month out of the year job, although that's when I spend probably the most of my hours. So $13,000 for that amount of time is not commensurate with the hours already. Unfortunately, we don't have access to health insurance, and I don't work enough hours at my other job to qualify for the health insurance. Luckily, I'm married, and my husband has health insurance, so I get health insurance through him. So that's a big one. I would love access to health insurance through this position. The other issue I would say that dominates the difficulty of serving is the amount of public pressure. I experienced it when I was on the select board, and I experienced it as a state rep, but there is a slightly different, I would say, level of focus as a state senator, and especially being a younger woman. I've found that I tend to get some of the more vitriolic responses, which is difficult, but I've taken a lot of time to, work on my own understanding of when people are insulting or rude. It's not a reflection on me, it's a reflection on them. So I think if you're thinking about public service, you should both know that it is it's financially detrimental in Vermont to serve publicly, unfortunately. I'm definitely in the prime of my earning years and making subpar wages, which is difficult. And you will be opening yourself up to extensive public shame. So that's one balance. But I'm really grateful for being able to do this work. And I have a lot of things in my life that make me be able to serve, including being married and getting health insurance and living in affordable housing and also being a one-car household. So we've really limited our expenses and our cost of living so I can do this work. And not everyone can do that, especially people who have dependents, whether that's a child or an older family member. Or someone who works a job that isn't flexible with time. Yes, but that's all to say I'm really grateful that I'm in public service, and I'm always motivated to do more. So there is a there is a level of, you certainly could do this job and put in fewer hours, but I'm a bit of a perfectionist and a workaholic. What I struggle with is wanting to do public service and making it financially affordable to do so. And I think if I were to ever leave public service, I mean, the reason would be the financial implications. So S39 is a bill that I'm one of the co-sponsors on, and it's in the Senate Government Operations Committee. There's also 5 or 6 different House bills that have a similar flavor of trying to resolve kind of the inequity when it comes to legislative pay and benefits. So we're working on that right now. I'd say that key things Vermonters should know is that you are not getting a fair shake when your legislature is not paying its employees a fair wage, because it means that fewer people are able to serve. So I don't think that the system is broken. I think the system was actually designed this way. You know, when you look at the creation of our legislative body, it was mainly to serve well, exclusively to serve white, wealthy, landowning, farming class folks. So like the gentleman farmer was really who the legislature was designed for. And we don't have a lot of gentleman farmers anymore, nor do we have the capacity to get people into the legislature with the level of salary and lack of benefits. So it discriminates, in my view, against working class people who want to serve. And that's why we have fewer of us. It is a citizen legislature. What I think I really hear from constituents who say, wow, I don't want you to change anything about the legislative structure. I don't want you to get paid more. I don't want you to get benefits. I can respect that, because what I hear is, I don't want career politicians. I don't want people who are in this for some political gain or benefit. But what I have seen is not that. There's not a tier of Vermonters who are in public service because they're trying to make a lot of money. And I don't think access to health care would open the floodgates to some hypothetical group of people who are going to come in and try to make this their political career. It just isn't feasible. So Senator McCormick and Senator Clarkson have both been longtime friends of mine. So when I decided to run for the Senate, I had years of conversations with them before I had actually chosen to run. And Allison in particular, Senator Clarkson, has been a big mentor for me. She was one of the folks who helped me when I first ran for state representative, and I was at her campaign launch when she ran for Senate the first time. And as our majority leader, she's offered a lot of support in her role for me, as well as a new legislature. So I feel like I've got kind of like got the test before the test was taking it, because she's been extremely helpful. And then Senator McCormick, Dick, has been, I've known him since I was 14. He was my professor at CCV when I was taking a class as a high school student. And he was very inspirational at that point in my life, both as a kind of down-to-earth person who demystified what it meant to be a state senator for me. And then he is very, he's philosophical and engages in, I would say, like the academic way that we look at politics, which is really interesting to me. So we'll do lots of back and forths about history and political viewpoints, and having both of them, I think I've actually got an advantage over any other new senator, because I have this team of 2 people who have been instrumental in helping me learn what it means to be a senator, and then giving me all the relationships and connections that you need to actually be successful. So I feel really lucky. And even just a moment ago, we worked together to try to divide and conquer a lot of the work. So we divvied up who goes to what town meeting, and we have an e-newsletter. So we try to balance what I can bring, which is a lot of the, I would say, it's not necessarily a generational gap, but some of the online resources that I'm a little more savvy on, or Yeah, some of the stuff that it uniquely my generation, I think, has a better handle on, we've been able to blend some of the institutional knowledge with some of the new. So my husband and I we're both working full time, so we don't actually have a lot of days off that overlap. So the one day we found was Mondays that we both had off. So we tried to carve that out because one of the challenges, I'd say, to being away just from your spouse or from your town for a long period of time during the week is it's very hard to kind of re-enter your town life or to like reconnect with your spouse. So we have made a lot of dedicated time for that, because before we used to just hope that we'd make time and it would just happen, and it just does not because just about every day I have some person or some event that would like to be scheduled. So that's difficult, but you have to make time for it. And one of the things that has really changed in my public service is I started out just about meeting with every person who had a rude comment to say. Like, I felt like it was my obligation to like meet with them and explain to them why I truly am a good public servant and to walk them through something we're doing. And I've gotten to the point now where I'll give people the information, but if they are ever like insulting or rude, I really do step back and have a boundary around that. And that also is a boundary on my time. So I've really limited when and how I engage with people who don't have any boundary around how they treat me. So that's really saved me a lot of time.
So that level of vitriol that you speak of, how's that coming at you? Electronically or interpersonally?
Largely emails, but I would say I've also had people come up to me. You know, there was a situation in the State House where someone yelled at me in committee, and I've also had folks make comments during testimony. So there's an interpersonal angle to that as well, but I'm a really optimistic, upbeat person, and I kind of take it as like water off a duck's back. But I used to like purposefully try to convince whoever it was that like I'm on the right track and you can trust me. And what I've learned now is if someone goes into a situation with real distrust of politicians, it's very hard it's worth having a conversation, but it's not worth kind of rehashing some of the same conversations over and over again. And there's many people who I've had conversations with where they started from a place of thinking that I was either not from Vermont, or I was wealthy, or that I work for an organization that would profit off of this. So when someone starts with that opinion, I think if I can take the time to say, actually, those aren't true, then they're more likely to be receptive to the information that they're hearing. But you have to, but then if they're unwilling to engage and kind of see that, no, in fact, I am from Vermont, or, and I'm not sure why that's relevant, or that I am not someone who's profiting off of this bill or whatever the bill is. Once you can get them to a place of seeing kind of the human side of things, then we can have a conversation. But I'm not willing to have people not get to that place with me and still engage.